I didn't feel like I was good enough on any level to put myself out there. A high school dropout, I didn't go to uni, didn't have a degree. When I looked at my peers and colleagues, I always felt like they were doing better. Didn't feel like I looked good enough, sounded good enough. Is any of this, are you relating to any of this? You're not feeling good enough to be seen and heard? Creating a personal brand, stepping into who you really are as a person and allowing people to see you as that allows you to be yourself full time.
Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of the Make It Happen show, where it's time for you to make it happen. In these implementation sessions, we're joined by an industry expert who will take you through in detail how to make it happen in your business. These are full of implementable actions, so get your pens ready, take notes, and be ready to apply these to your business. Let's get into it.
Well, first of all, I have to say how blessed I feel to be here and to have the opportunity to work with you all today. I am here today to talk to you about personal branding and essentially mastering the art of putting yourself out there. So it's actually quite ironic that I am standing up today talking about how to master the art of putting yourself out there. Because if you had have Googled me about 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, this is the picture that will have come up. Now, if you're wondering if I looked like that 2 years ago, no, I didn't. And yes, I have a very good excuse why, if you Googled my name, pictures of women in lingerie would come up. But the reality was that the reason why you would only have ever seen pictures of my clients was because I was absolutely terrified of putting myself out there and allowing myself to be seen and heard. Here I was, I understood the power of personal branding. That was my gig. I was always in individual branding. I understood the power of it. I could see why my clients needed to worry about their personal brand. I could see why it mattered to them, but I couldn't actually create the link between why it would matter to me. So when I really asked myself, what was the reason for that? It came down to two things, and you might relate to these. The first one was I didn't feel like I was good enough on any level to put myself out there. A high school dropout, I didn't go to uni, didn't have a degree. When I looked at my peers and colleagues, I always felt like they were doing better. Didn't feel like I looked good enough, sounded good enough. Is any of this, are you relating to any of this? You're not feeling good enough to be seen and heard. So I didn't feel like I was good enough. Second to that was the fear of what my friends, family, and colleagues or peers would say if I actually had have put myself out there, or if I decided to put myself out there going forward. But I can now confirm, having done this now for 2 years, that there is a reservoir of talent, of creative ideas, of amazing stories, of incredible insights, enlightening experiences, all hidden within individuals who are too afraid to put themselves out there. And we are poorer for it. So that's why I do what I do. And that's why I'm so excited to be here today to talk to you about personal branding. Okay, so a personal brand can be defined as the way in which an individual is recognized and remembered. Their personal brand is the result of how they consciously bring together their unique combination of characteristics, qualities, skills, and preferences together for a purpose. So there's two words there that you can see that are bold. The first one is consciously. So I believe that the vast majority of people do not consciously think about their personal brand and shaping their personal brand because they genuinely believe that they don't matter, that it doesn't matter. They're not high profile, they're not the CEO, they're not a celebrity, so why even bother thinking about it? But I want to ask you two questions. First question is, how many of you have had a situation where a friend, family member, or colleague or peer, whoever, comes up to you and says, or you're sitting down in conversation, they say, you know when you said, well, that changed the way that I do, or that changed the way that I see this, or that changed the way that I, go about my work. Who here has ever had a situation like that? And you're sitting there going, I don't remember ever saying anything that profound, right? To me, that's a great example of you actually being remembered and not knowing that you're being remembered. You having an impact and not actually appreciating the fact that you are having an impact in each and every encounter. Second question. Who here has ever been to an event similar to this one, and they see a person that they know or they've met before, but they pretend not to see them, but not because they don't remember. They're worried that they won't remember you. Who's done that? Come on, admit to it. You've done it. I have to admit, even this morning, I got on the ferry and I saw Jack get on. And I was standing there going, oh, I better not go up to him. He might need his quiet time. He might not remember who I am. We haven't even met yet. So he's crazy thinking, but this is the kind of thing that we act out, yeah? All right, so secondly, the word purpose. So I believe that the vast majority of people don't want attention just for the sake of attention itself, right? Those people do exist, and if you want to encounter them, just watch Married at First Sight. But the vast majority of people like you and I, we don't want attention just for the sake of attention itself. The only reason that we will ever put ourselves out there and expose ourselves to criticism and rejection and so on and so forth is if we're doing it for a purpose that is bigger than ourselves. That's the only thing that's going to get you through the fear and insecurity, to be able to consistently put yourself out there to the extent that you need to in order to create a personal brand that is memorable. But for me, the thing that doesn't get spoken about as much, but I think is so important, can be summed up in this quote. It's from Phil Knight in his book Shoe Dog. I want what everyone else wants, and that is to be me full time. So I really believe creating a personal brand, stepping into who you really are as a person and allowing people to see you as that, allows you to be yourself full time. And I think that that in itself is a beautiful thing to aim for in life. I had a client that summed it up perfectly to me as to why she was spending so much time building her personal brand alongside her business brand. And that was that one day when she wanted to sell her business brand, she wanted to walk away with an asset. She wanted to create personal influence as well as positional influence. Positional influence being that as long as she was the leader of that business, she had positional influence, but she wanted to ensure that the minute she sold that business, she'd still have personal influence. Does that make sense? What a lot of people do, or make the mistake of doing when it comes to personal branding, is they compartmentalize their lives, which is why a lot of people struggle on a platform, for example, like LinkedIn, because they have in their mind that this is who I am personally, but the minute that they get on a platform like LinkedIn, they struggle because they're like, I've got to be professional. I've got to put my business hat on and I've got to show up in a different way because this is my professional context. Who here struggles? They're fine on Instagram, they're fine on all of the other social media platforms, but when it comes to LinkedIn, they feel like the game, you have to up your game. Yeah, and you tend to feel like you overthink it a little bit more. So for me, that's a perfect demonstration of compartmentalization. That you feel like you can be yourself over here, but not over here, because this is where I need to be professional. And I really think that's not a great strategy from a personal branding perspective. One of my favorite ever stories in 2018 on CNN was about David Solomon. Who here knows David Solomon, CEO of Goldman Sachs? But on the weekend, David Solomon goes by the name DJ Soul. Yeah, he's a DJ on the weekend, and he publishes music, he's got a record deal and everything. So I love this, right? I really love this. For me, he is the pin-up boy for somebody who is very proud to be themselves full-time. Yes, it doesn't mean that in his office he has his DJ set and he's breaking it out while they're doing all of their calculations, whatever else. But he's just allowing people to see him for who he is in his entirety. That to me is what personal branding, effective personal branding, is all about. Not just about what you do, but it's allowing people to see who you are, like the real you. I'm hoping that I can inspire you to connect with your inner DJ soul and really like let that part out of you. Yeah?
Hi everyone, I just wanted to jump in here to let you know if you're enjoying this episode, it doesn't need to stop here. We've taken this episode plus all the other episodes and also video footage from the interviews and made it available for free. There's also a bunch of fantastic guides, tools and resources you can use to grow your business. To grab those tools, just go to www.the-entourage.com/podcast. Right, let's get back into the show.
You are your cheapest marketing asset within the business. And in terms of really, as I said, humanizing the business, showing where, from a leadership perspective, the values of the business lie, you really get to animate those. So when you're out there building your personal brand, that's allowing you to do that. So that's really why this is really important. So the next step is to consider your 4 Ps. So what we're going to be doing in this step is applying a very traditional framework of brand and brand marketing, but applying it to you as an individual and your personal brand. But there's one thing I want to say to preface this before we get started. Now, it's pretty reasonable to say that if we were going to brand a product, a computer or a skincare product, it's pretty fair to say that we could create a brand, we could create a brand story, and that brand and brand story may exist for the long term. So you think of some of the most powerful brands in the world, McDonald's, Chanel, Gucci, obviously you know which brands I like, but they've kind of remained the same for many, many years, and it's the fact they have remained the same that allows you to really know who they are and what they stand for. Now, when we're talking about you as an individual, that is obviously impossible because you're a multi-dimensional, creative, ever-evolving, ever-changing being. And I want to say that to you to really let you know that perhaps how you put yourself out there today is actually not going to be the same as how you're putting yourself out there in 10 years' time. Why? Because life experiences change you. They change your perspective. They change what you want to stand for. So what matters is that however you build your brand today and the audience that you build around that, you essentially going to be taking them on the journey. So it's not to say that you can't change your branding, your story, what you stand for. That may change. It's just about taking people on the journey and communicating that as you go along. So the 4 Ps, just as an overview, are your promise, your packaging, your position, and your promotion. So the first one that we're going to go into is your promise. So your promise, from a kind of an individual standpoint, is your reputation. It's what you're known for. So when people think about you and your name, what is it that they think about? What are the words that come up for them when they think about your name? So some of the questions that you want to be asking yourself around what your brand promise is are things like, well, what do you stand for as an individual? So that would be a question that you would want to ask yourself. You would want to ask yourself, what do you want to be known for? So what are those words that you want people to associate with you when they think of you and your name? And again, this is not just about what you do, this is also about who you are. And what we're really trying to do here is that at every touch point, wherever someone encounters you, whether it's online or in person, you want them to get the same kind of feeling every time. That's your promise. They know that whenever they encounter you, that's going to be the feeling that they get from you. And then, as I just said, what can others expect and depend on when they encounter you in person or online? And again, personal branding is not just about the big moments. So it's not just about who you are in a public forum, on stage, on a panel, on a podcast, online, where more people are seeing you. It's actually also about all of the little moments in between as well. So becoming aware of what those words, that brand promise is, that becomes your benchmark. Am I delivering on my brand promise every time I show up, in every situation? Okay, so that's promise. Next one is your packaging. I believe the stats are, in terms of making a first impression, online it's 2.6 seconds. That's how long a person takes to sum you up in terms of your profile photo. And then in person, they say 7 seconds, but there's other research that says that it's instantaneous. So that's what's happening, whether we like to admit it or not. When somebody meets you in person, or even sees your profile shot online, they're summing you up. They are looking at your packaging. So some of the things for you to consider when it comes to your packaging are as follows. The first one is, does your personal style elevate and reinforce your brand? Does your profile image position you in your best light? Are your online profiles cohesive with the way you show up offline? This is all, from my perspective, part of your packaging, is what you need to keep in mind. And are you communicating your story in a way that allows you to connect and establish credibility? Sometimes how we're projecting ourselves can be habitual, and it's just kind of what we've always done, but never really checked in with ourselves to see, like, is this actually how I want to be showing up? Is this actually resonating with who I want to be? Next one is, what is your position? So let's quickly look at another product. Let's think of a Rolex watch. I was going to use Cartier, but it's a bit too soon for that. So we're going to use a Rolex watch, right? Would you find a Rolex watch in Proud's Jewelers? No. No, I hope not. No. Would Rolex use Kim Kardashian as the face of their brand? No. You're unsure of that, and I can understand why. Because, you know, she may be the next president. You never know. It's not far, I know, it's actually not too far out there. But let's assume that everyone remains sane at Rolex. No, she's not going to be the next face of Rolex. Why?
Unless Rolex caters to a different market.
Unless, but for right now, yes, unless they tried to, but for right now, no, they're not going to use her because the brand positioning is wrong, right? Would Rolex do a brand collaboration with Adidas? No, unlikely. So when I talk about positioning, this is what I'm talking about. So, you know, the positioning statement is really about who do I want to reach and where are those people and what resonates with me as an individual. Okay, so just moving on, the next P is very closely aligned with positioning, but it's actually about putting that P into action. So some of the questions for your promotion or the promotion side of things is, are you leveraging the power of social media? All right, are you networking and leveraging your network in the most powerful way possible? So for example, coming to an event like this, it's not just about coming to the event, it's about actually making this count from a promotion perspective as well. So that's where promotion comes into play. Are you sharing your ideas and achievements on a consistent basis? But the message that I really want to get across with the promotion side of things is this. If you're waiting for someone to come and tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, I think you're good enough, you're ready, put yourself out there, I'm just letting you know that that day may never come. I know that sounds a bit negative, but it's the truth. You really have to choose yourself when it comes to promoting yourself and putting yourself out there. That's really the most important message in that part. It's such a big topic, it's almost impossible for me to just cover everything, but really all I'm doing today is just planting seeds and stressing the importance of it. That's really what's important here. Personal branding is not necessarily about ending up on the cover of a magazine, right? It's not necessarily about being interviewed by Oprah. And it's not necessarily about rising to the heights of becoming a high-profile public figure. That's not necessarily what personal branding is about. For me, personal branding is about playing a bigger game. It's allowing yourself to be seen and heard for who you are and who you want to be. So in closing today, all I would like to say to you is be yourself, be your brand, believe in yourself and believe in your brand. You never know what tomorrow will bring. So seize the day and allow people to see you along the way. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Make It Happen show. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. And it doesn't need to end there. We've actually gone and grabbed a whole bunch of extra resources for you. Behind the scenes footage, videos from this and all the other episodes, as well as show notes that you can grab for free. Just head along to www.the-entourage.com/podcast and you can grab all those extra resources. Thanks for tuning in, and I cannot wait to introduce you to our next guest on the next episode.